Oh my goodness. Welcome back to another episode of The Breaking Point. On this episode, John Cena was rumored to be injured. Don't worry. He is okay, according to the rumors. If you haven't seen them yet, I'll try to find the video and put it in the description. I don't know if... I'm not sure if... I know a lot of people are having issues finding it, so I'm not 100% sure if it's still around, but if it is, I will definitely find that and then throw it in the description for you guys. So be on the lookout for that. But basically what happened was he had a match with Kevin Owens at a house show, and he tries to do a move that is completely out of his body type and doesn't really work out. I don't know if there was a miscommunication, if he just didn't tell Owens that he was going to do this move. I think it was kind of a problem on both their parts. But anyway, it didn't end out well for Cena because Kevin Owens kind of botched the move a little bit, dropped him kind of on his upper back neck area. It looked pretty gruesome. Cena kind of he landed and then Cena kind of just dropped. I wasn't sure if he was injured or if he was just trying to sell the mistake as if it was legitimate. But according to backstage, he was definitely injured a little bit, but not bad enough to keep him off TV or anything like that. So he will be around. He performed at a house show, I think it was the following night, and fans said he looked perfectly fine. But then again, with John Cena, it's hard to tell because he's one of those guys that will work through anything, and he's got that kind of work ethic. He's got that kind of drive. So, it's hard to really tell. With guys like him, it's hard to tell how severe the injury really is. But it brought me to a question. It had me questioning the WWE and had me kind of think of a pretty solid topic, I think, for the show. And it's something that I think should be talked about. And it's, what would have happened, though, if Cena were legitimately injured? Because I've talked in previous episodes, which if you haven't watched them yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. You definitely should. And if you think, and by the way, if you think this show sucks, well, then that's good for you because it can only get better from here, right? I can't see it getting any worse. So stick with it, and hopefully I get better. But I've talked about lack of establishment before, and how Cena is really the only main event guy on the roster right now. And I mean, if you look back at other eras, you look back at the Attitude Era, the golden era of wrestling, or the golden age of wrestling, rather. I mean, you look at their roster, and it was filled with guys. Not every guy was a main eventer, but they were all somewhat established at one point or another. I mean, you look at, for most of us, we're more familiar with the, I would assume, the Attitude Era. So, I mean, you look at that era, and you had Triple H, you had Stone Cold Steve Austin, you had The Rock. Then you had guys like Mick Foley. You had guys like Randy Orton at one point. That was more ruthless aggression. But, Attitude leaking into the ruthless aggression era. Because Randy wasn't in Attitude. He was in ruthless aggression. But either way, I mean, they had a roster filled with guys that you could rely on. You had Road Dogg. You had DX, which was a huge faction. You had Shawn Michaels. You had at one point or another Bret Hart. You had, I'm trying to go through the list. It's been a while since I've kind of, as you probably can tell, it's been a while since I've read up on the Attitude Era. I used to watch it all the time, but drawing a blank on guys. But there were tons of guys. I mean, you had rosters filled with just talent, and they weren't, like I said, they weren't all main events. A Road Dogg was not a main event kind of guy. A Billy Gunn was not a main event kind of guy, but they were established. You knew that they meant business. Their matches had meaning. And, I mean, you can't say that nowadays. You can't look at the roster and say that the New Day has meaning, that they're established, because they're not. You can't say that a Cesaro is established, because he's not. A Kevin Owens is established, because he's not. You can't say that their WWE champion is established, because he's not. Cena is really, truly the only guy who's established, and that's a huge, huge issue. Now, that brings us back to the question, what would have happened had he been out? Because you remove your only real main event guy, your only real established guy on your roster, you remove him out of the equation. They're going to be scrambling, trying to figure out what the hell are they going to do, because none of these matches are going to have meaning. None of them are going to be interesting. Whether you like Cena or not, he brings, he brings something to the roster. He brings that sense of importance to a match. When you're fighting Cena, that match is important. It can make or break you. But he's the only guy who can do that. And that's not good. You think of Night of Champions, he's supposed to be in that match with Seth Rollins, but what happens, what if he was injured? Then what are they going to do? He forfeits? They're not, for some reason in this era of wrestling, they're not smart enough to think outside the box and say, maybe we should have Seth Rollins attack John Cena, and we can build this up as a storyline, because once we do that, not only does that make Seth Rollins a stronger heel, because now he's getting some solid heat from the Cena fans because he attacked him from behind, but this can set up a storyline for when Cena is cleared to come back. And then we're not going to have to scramble at the last second and put out something that's lackluster. Interesting. But they're not smart enough, apparently, to think ahead, because if they were, that's something they would do. So, what happens? Where do they go? They're going to have to rely on their part-timers. That's not a good business scheme. That's not a smart way to run your business. Rely on guys that aren't going to be there for that long. Guys that may or may not actually be able to, be that entertaining. As much as I love Sting, his match with Triple H wasn't that great. If DX hadn't shown up, if the NWO didn't show up, would that match have been as good? Triple H did a hell of a job, but to be honest, and this is not an attack on Sting, and if there's, if you're a Sting fan, I apologize, but you got to be honest with yourself. He didn't look good. He was very slow. He blew up pretty quickly. All things considered, it wasn't bad. For his age, but this is not the guy that you can rely on to carry your show. Maybe Brock Lesnar, but that's about it. You're gonna have to book him, and he's not cheap. I know I say this probably every podcast, that I sound like a broken record, but that, that's a dangerous thing, and I would hope it was an eye opener for them, and I would hope that they can see the error in their logic here, that they can't just rely on John Cena, and they wonder why people hate Cena, and I think people kind of get it. I think they're irritated and they're tired of it, but I think they're pointing it at the wrong guy. You can't blame Cena for that. You can't blame John Cena for the terrible booking they're giving him, because yes, he's established, but he's the only established guy. That's bad booking. It's not smart booking. So you can't blame him. Like everything else that goes wrong, you have to blame the guys, the powers that be. You have to blame that. Cena's doing what he's doing. He's not a bad wrestler. He's not bad on the mic. He's, passionate. He's driven. He's a hard-working guy. That's what you look for in a wrestler. And if there were more guys on the roster, it's like this. If you were to go to a restaurant and you were to go in and it's fancy and what they have on the menu is very expensive, the only thing they serve is chicken, and it's only cooked one way, and it's the best chicken you ever had. All right, I'll order the chicken. You have the chicken. This is delicious. But chances of you going back there, probably pretty damn slim. If you go back and they have that chicken there, and then they have it a different way, all right, I can stay there. They add another type of chicken to their menu. So then you're like, all right, I'll go back and I'll sample the other chicken. Oh, that's a really good tasting chicken. I like them. But then they remove the old chicken off the menu. Now you're left with one again. Nah, I'm probably not going to go back there again. Maybe once in a while I'll go back. And then they add another chicken, and then they take the old one off. Now imagine you go to that same restaurant, then they add steak. Then they add lobster. Now they have 3 things on their menu you can choose from. Chances of you going back have just increased. That's the logic they need to have. They need to have more on their menu than just chicken. And that's not like, I'm not saying John Cena is a chicken or any nonsense like that. That's just how I was kind of associating it. That's the way I was wording it. I chose to word it. But, I mean, John Cena could be the steak. It really doesn't matter at this point. But, you know, the association I'm trying to make here is that they need to have more on their menu. They need to give us more of an option. And, you know, because relying on Cena, as it was just shown, and this has happened before, you know, where they've had scares like this. Oh my God, you know, Cena goes out. You know, I mean, they're going to be making money off of his merchandise, but for us fans, it's a bad thing. You know, they need to give us more on their menus. They can't keep relying on the same old chicken. They can keep trying to dress it up differently, but eventually we're going to get sick of chicken in general. So we'll keep coming back if you expand your menu. Give us something more to choose from. And that in and of itself is going to take the heat off of Cena, because right now he has heat because he's the only option. I'm sick of Cena. It's not Cena's fault, but it's because it's the only thing I can choose from. I mean, I can like other guys on the roster, but it's different. Like, I like Seth Rollins, I like Cesaro, I like Kevin Owens, but they don't do anything, so I get tired of them, not because of them, but because they're not being booked properly. Because there's nothing to invest in. They're not giving me anything to invest in with these guys. I don't know anything about them. It's like they're doing the job of a wrestler, and they're doing a job of a booker, and they're doing a job of the creative team. It's like, what are these clowns in the back actually doing? Are they actually doing any kind of work? Because these wrestlers are killing themselves trying to get themselves out there, and they're not getting any help from anybody backstage. They're actually making it more difficult for them to get over. I love Dean Ambrose. I am sick and tired of him right now. I'm so bored of his character because there's no meaning in what he's doing. He's just being thrown around. That's a shame. Huge fan of the guy. When he was in the Shield, he was my favorite guy. But I'm bored with him. And like I said, not his fault. They need to expand their menu. That guy easily could be on the menu as a main eventer. Owens, easily on the main event. Cesaro, easily on the main event. You start giving us more options, the heat that Cena has right now will eventually start coming off, and fans will start warming up to him again. I promise you that. Fans will start to like Cena again because they don't have to just rely on that guy. There's still going to be fans who don't like him, but that happens everywhere. But right now, you don't have that dynamic of, you know, like you had The Rock versus Stone Cold. Half the crowd liked The Rock, half the crowd liked Stone Cold. You have that dynamic, but with one guy. That's the problem. Let's go Cena. Cena sucks. And the fans that don't like him, it's because they're getting tired of chicken. You can dress it up, you can put barbecue sauce on it, you can put Frank's Red Hot on it. Not going to make a difference because we're tired of it. And, you know, you need to, because if he goes out and he gets injured, Cena's not going to be around forever. Expand your menu, because what happens if there's a chicken shortage? What happens if there's a huge disease that strikes all the chickens out and your restaurant can no longer sell chicken? You're just going to sell appetizers? Nobody's going to come into a restaurant to just have appetizers. They'll go elsewhere. They'll go to a bar, aka the independent circuits. It's that simple. Nobody's going to come to your restaurant. Your restaurant's going to tank. Expand your menu, draw people in. It's a very simple formula that these guys don't seem to be getting. I don't know what they're doing backstage, or how these guys are they getting paid to do this? And where the hell do I sign up? Because apparently you just go in wearing a suit and you sit down all day. Because it doesn't seem like they're doing any work. I don't know. We're running into overtime. I don't want it to go 20 minutes like a couple of my podcasts. I try to keep it around 15. Sometimes it gets to 20, but I try to reel it in. So I'm going to kind of keep it at 15. Hopefully get you guys moving back on your day. But expand your menu. That's it. Give me some more shit to eat, and I will be a satisfied customer. Alright guys, you know what time it is. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Breaking Point. Make sure you join me right back here in the studio, same time, same place, tomorrow morning. And as always, consider the point broken.